raidieraksts Drošinātājs. Hello, Mariia.
Hello, and thank you very much for the invitation and, of course, for your interest in the topic. And if I have few sentences to say, just to start before your question
Sure.
And maybe before introduction, I would like to begin by firstly expression my gratitude to Latvia and to the Latvian audience for your consistent solidarity with Ukraine and, of course, understanding of the problematic, your political, humanitarian, and as for me, moral support. This means a great deal to me and, of course, to all Ukrainian people, especially in the context of Russian ongoing aggression. And I also want to note that we are recording this conversation during air raid attack of Russian Federation to Ukraine, including Kiev. So in case if something happened, don't worry, I connect with you because everything can happen. Now I'm without electricity and water, as many of Ukrainian people. So I hope you understand these circumstances and situation where we stay. But I'm with you and I'm happy that you have a time to talk about Ukraine, to talk about Ukrainian children and people under occupation. So my great thanks to you.
As one of our listeners wrote to us, whenever Ukrainians say something like "thank you" to Latvia, we definitely must reply, and that's how I feel, of course, as well. That actually all the thanks to you. And really, before we start with our main topic, I have to ask you, and you already mentioned a little bit, how are you in the midst of, as a person, in the midst of a new wave of Russian attacks on Kyiv during this cold period of time that is clearly aimed at making everyday life for people as hard as possible?
We always said that Ukrainian people is brave people. But sometimes we feel a little bit tired because it's really stressful to be during daily attack and also without electricity and even heating for more than, I guess, first attack was in the 9th of January. I mean, first attack which attacked infrastructure and stopped heating in some residential building. So it's more than 10 days for some people without heating. I'm lucky one right now. I'm with heating, but without electricity and water. So we are tired. I guess we are a little bit nervous and we want to share with other people our experience. Unfortunately, it's not about happy and it's not about lucky, but we want to share this and talk about this. So thank you again for your question and thank you for your support. Again, дякую.
Mariia, let's get to the main topic of our conversation.
Yeah.
In a public presentation of your report that is named How Russia Erases Ukrainian Identity Under the Guise of Combating Extremism, you used a striking metaphor comparing Russia's anti-extremism policy to a asphalt machinery that squishes everything in its path. How has the Russian state successfully inverted this concept of extremism so that it no longer targets violent radicalism, but rather the very existence of Ukrainian identity?
Okay. When we talk about how Russia redefines extremism, it's important for me to start with one key point. Since 2014, and especially after the full-scale invasion in 2022, Russia's policy has gone for beyond military aggression. It has become a systematic project of ideological control and forced assimilation, particularly in the temporary occupied territories of Ukraine. Officially, the Russian Federation presents the fight against extremism as a legitimate effort to protect state security and public order. we must understand that international discourse extremism usually refers to violent radicalism, terrorism, or calls to violence, so on. But in the Russian context, this concept has been redefined. In practice, extremism is no longer about violence. It's about loyalty, it's about obedience, it's about also suppression Ukrainian identity as such. And also when we see both inside Russia and in the occupied territories, in the anti-extremism legislation is used to persecute anyone who disagree with the system. This includes journalists, activists, teachers, and also children. Expression of Ukrainian language, history, culture, and also national symbols, even Ukrainian flag, or even using a color of Ukrainian flag, or even personal identification as Ukrainian are treated, it's still dangerous. This trend, I want to stop you in one sense just to understand what's going on. In Russian Federation was updated a strategy for countering extremism. It was adopted many years ago, but they update it in the end of 2024. Unlike the previous version, this strategy has no fixed end date, which for us which tells to us that one important thing, it's designed as a permanent ideological framework. Among the so-called sources of extremist threats, the strategy names not only Nazism or violent radicalism, but also radical Ukrainian nationalism, which means that again, all people who have pro-Ukrainian point of view can identified as Ukrainian extremism groups. And also we have some example prepared to conversation with you. I tried to find some connection with your country, with Latvia, and maybe you know, or just say that it's not true, but identify the case with one Latvian charitable foundation. I try to pronounce correct, but again, you can correct me. Ziedot. Maybe you know.
Yeah, Ziedot LV is the biggest crowdfunding site in Latvia. They have also quite many initiatives where they are helping Ukraine. Yes.
Cool. I'm happy that you know it. And why I remind this charitable foundation, because few years ago, Russian Federation identified this foundation as extremist. So you must understand that even Latvian charitable foundation, big organization which want to help to Ukrainians, as you know, they help Ukrainian in Latvia and also outside Latvia. But for Russian, this organization is extremism. They talk about extremism in this connection. So for me, it demonstrates that even any act of support can be clarified as Russophobia or can be clarified as extremism action against Russian Federation.
Is that correct that I think you mentioned in your article or somewhere I read that in this 2024 update of the Russia strategy for countering extremism, they officially included Russophobia as an extremist threat as well. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. Before this period, they used these terms like in daily speech, but it's the first time when we see that official document included these terms. When we talk about Russophobia as an official label and legal tool, it is important for me to understand how Russia itself defines this term, because officially Russophobia is described as antagonistic attitude toward Russian citizen, as well as toward Russian language, culture, tradition, and history. And we must understand that it is presented alongside traits such as neo-Nazi and radical nationalist ideology, particularly those legally organized and from Ukraine, which are framed as instruments of hybrid destabilization against Russian Federation. Within the conceptual framework, Russophobia is not simply a descriptive term. It becomes a legal and political instrument. In Russia, official rhetoric and documents, Ukraine is consistently portrayed as a source of threats to Russia, spreading extremist ideology, falsifying history, and promoting anti-Russian sentiment. In this narrative, even normal expression of Russian identity, language, culture, or even historical memory are reframed as a form of Russophobia, justifies repression of ideological intervention. And in practice, when back to the temporary occupied territories of Ukraine, the label enables a range of measures that directly affect children, schools, and everyday speech. Teachers are instructed to monitor students for any signs of Russophobic behavior, which can include using Ukrainian words, citing Ukrainian authors, or engaging with Ukrainian history and culture.
If I could just ask you to just name everyday things that you cannot do right now in occupied territories.
Of course, it's most of the case Ukrainian language.
I want to clarify what you mean by just Ukrainian language. Do people on street cannot speak to each other in Ukrainian, and that would be seen as pro-Nazi or pro-anti-Russian or something like that? In big cities it's dangerous because it could be reported by using of Ukrainian language. It's not about just seeing it, it's even regularly using. If we talk about little city or village, it can be, but still in using of Ukrainian language is dangerous. Also, it's about all Ukrainians book. After occupation, in most of the cases, we fixed that all Ukrainians' books was burned. Also, it's about all Ukrainian symbols, even using of Ukrainian colors. It's all about Ukrainian symbolic. And when you ask me about some example, how to demonstrate what's going on with Russia and Russian action in temporary occupied territories, I want to give you a few examples which illustrate all this picture. It's first case of one young girl. I guess it was, she was in the age of 14 or 15 years at the time. She posted on social networks, Instagram and I guess in Vkontakte, she posted picture of the maps marking Crimea, the island Crimea, which occupied by Russia. She marking Crimea as a part of Ukraine. And also she add some music, Ukrainian song, some popular Ukrainian pop artist, and her action was clarified as extremism. She was called as a Nazi girl, and all this action was about Nazi song and Russophobia. So as a result, she was forced to make a public apology. It was a video which was published in all resources in Crimea. So it was shared everyone. In this video was information about her, about name, about age, about place of residence. So everyone know about this situation. So you can just imagine the pressure to this girl.
And other case, again, it's just example, but in fact we have more case which documents the situation. It's in another case, it's a case of individual, a group of boy in age of 17 and 21 or something like that. They seen in Ukrainian songs in one of the parks, again in Crimea, and as a result, police department, or now in Russian still militia, I'm not sure, but police department make an administrative protocol to them, again about which punish public action aimed at discreditation of the use of Russian armed forces. Have this action discrediting of Russian army? I don't know. But still, these boys, we don't know what's going on with them, all of them later, but we have the information about this protocol and about punishment as a result.
While researching for your paper, you probably looked through many cases. And one thing is, if you have some laws that nobody, pays attention to or nobody cares about them. But in this case, if there are convictions or if there are these videos, then somebody cares. So how is there a pattern of people snitching out to police? How do these everyday situations, like guys singing in a park or somebody speaking Ukrainian, how do they get the attention of police? And do you think we can talk about quite many pro-Russians that are just looking around and trying to find, people who sympathize Ukraine?
First of all, it's a result of police organs or police department action. We must understand that in the temporary occupied territories, a lot of it, because it's one action that Russian Federation do after the occupation of some territories. They try to add so many people which control the action of other people using the judgment system, using police, and so on. So this system is work very well, in fact. Also, be honest, we have some case when people, ordinary people inform about this situation, but main goal wanna say that all system in the temporary occupied work for it. In our report, we talk about the educational system which work from the head, from the level of Ministry of Russian Federation, then working in the level of some territories which are under occupation, and then work in the level of school using also teachers which as a result of different action decide to work in the system of Russian Federation. It's not a lot of people, but still we have some cases when after the occupation of some territories, some teachers decided to work for Russia's authority. It's true. But back to your question, they use all educational system. For example, the teachers have a task to control the social pages of their students and report about some changes in their posts or some changes in their rhetorics. So Russian Federation control also all these cases through the educational system. And as for me, maybe you read the book about how educational system work during the Second World War and how Nazi use the educational system for control the people. I want to say that Russian Federation use it much better and control it more worse than it was during the Second World War. So these instruments work quite good. And also one short point we must understand in Ukraine and also in other European countries that Russia wanna spread this control on the other territory, not just the territory of Russia or territory under occupation, but also want to spread it through other territories. So that's why we in Ukraine have some bad flags, not red flags, but some bad situation which we see with young people when representative of the Russian Federation, KGB, it's not KGB right now, but still it's FSB, they want to contact with young people and for different terroristic attack in controlled territory of Ukraine. But as for me, and it's important message from me to you, that Russia can use this instrument, all these instruments also in other territories, using young people, using some informational, not attack, informational different news, different articles, different media. So we must understand all these risks, not just in temporary occupied territories, as I said, but also in other part of all countries, in fact.
I read that over 500,000 social media accounts are monitored in Crimea alone. Well, at least it was in early 2024. But you mentioned teachers having to monitor social media accounts of their students. So that means if we imagine a teacher in, occupied Crimea or Donetsk going home from school, grading the homeworks of their pupils at first, and then going through their social media accounts and trying to find the Ukrainian flag or Ukrainian sentiment there, pro-Ukrainian sentiment. Could that be the case, right?
Yeah, it could be. And for Ukraine, there are a problem because our government and other non-governmental organizations try to support young people in their decision to move from temporary occupied territories to controlled territories of Ukraine to get in the educational, high level of education. And the main problem for us right now to spread the information about these possibilities. Because mostly in occupied territories, people, they're scared to find any kind of information about from Ukrainian resource. They're scared to even show or even speak with other people that, okay, my child wanna move from, from Donetsk or Lugansk. They wanna study in Kiev or in Lviv. People scared to share about it, but still we have a lot of cases when the families who stay in temporary occupied territories or even the parents of young people, in case when their parents don't support Ukraine or better say support pro-Russians, they are pro-Russian, they decided to go to some European countries or they decide to go to controlled territories of Ukraine. We must understand it, and I know that a lot of people, of Ukrainian young people, they move to Ukraine, controlled territory of Ukraine through Baltic countries. That's why you can, I guess, in some day in Riga, for example, or even in other countries, other cities of Baltic, you can speak with young people who move from Yalta or Crimea or move from Berdyansk through Baltic countries in their passion to study in democratic Ukraine. We must understand it, but still it's a problematic because of a lot problem on the way of these people in their in their goals, in their dreams to live in democracy countries. And, on Sunday I talked with one young girl. She's 17 years old, and she is from Crimea. Crimea under occupation more than 11 years. And so you just imagine that all her life she lived under Russian occupation. But her passion to be and to live in Ukraine was so huge. So after 18 years, she decided not to talk to their parents. She packed all her stuff and moved through Russian Federation, through Baltic countries, Poland, and now she lives in Kiev, Ukraine. But it was her passion to live in democracy country.
I don't know if you can answer my next question, but if you can, is there a way for Ukrainian government or different NGOs to reach the at least the kids, I mean, not the kids, the youngsters, the teenagers, any other people, pro-Ukrainian people in currently occupied territories?
Yeah, we do it. Not just dream about it, but we do it. We provide information. We search and found these people through different connection with people. Just to clarify it, we still have good connection between people because, for example, if to take my family, my husband have some relatives who live under occupation, and he tried to inform about situation in control territories of Ukraine, in situation, all changes what's happening in Ukraine and also in European Union and so on, and try to inform about different option to young people. So we use this instrument, we use the personal connection between people to provide information and provide support in control territories of Ukraine. So yeah, we search these people through personal connection, and also after full-scale invasion, we must understand that a lot of Ukrainian school, which before occupation was located in currently temporary occupied territories, they was relocated to control territories of Ukraine and stay in touch with people, with these students, with these pupils who study in the school. So we also use the instrument of teachers who now is IDPs, internally displaced person, work in different areas of Ukraine, but still have the connection with these people, with this family and these children. So we use all instruments to provide the information for such people and to provide the possibility to come to Ukraine or come to other part of Europe, because again, we fix that a lot of people now decide to move not to control territory of Ukraine, they decide to move in some European countries because I guess the main reason is safety for these children.
Just for our listeners to better grasp the gravity of the situation, particularly sobering part of your report deals with the Rosfin monitoring list of terrorists and extremists. And as of August 2025, this list includes 12 children.
Yeah, it's correct.
What are the supposed crimes for those kids to be included in that list?
The same as I said before, it's Russophobia and it's supporting of Ukrainian army. It's some case in form of Ukrainian army and security services of Ukraine about location of location of Russian army.
One thing you found is that 161 minors were in the so-called DNR, or Donetsk People's Republic, were prosecuted, and nearly 1 in 3, that means like 48 children, were placed in compulsory psychiatric treatment. Are we seeing a revival of like Soviet-style punitive psychiatry, where child's are, pro-Ukrainian views are treated as a mental illness that needs to be cured?
Yeah, you are right. These tools, the tools which Russian Federation use, like psychological treatment or psychiatric treatment, it looks like from the time of Soviet Union, but we must understand that the Russian Federation is a new Soviet Union, so Russia use all instrument just to pressure for people. Yes, you're right. They have information about 48 children which possibly sent for psychiatric treatment, but again, because of limitation of information from temporary occupied territories and that database of Russian Federation in occupied territories closed, so we don't have a lot of information about the reason of psychiatric treatment or information for what time was this used, but based on information in so-called DPR, Donetsk Public Republic, we have this information, and we believed we have this information. It's true because it's based in their news and official report. But again, how they used it and what's going on with these children as a result of this treatment, we don't have this information.
I know that there was this September 10 deadline for Ukrainians in occupied territories to become Russian citizens or to be labeled foreigners, and that brings also with that you cannot call for an ambulance. I understand there are some problems with property if you want to buy or something like that, right? Now everything you mentioned, the colors, the language, the symbols, what's next?
I don't know. I guess Russia used all instruments to, in their passion to change Ukrainian identity and burn everything that means Ukraine. So I guess they will use all this instrument in the next period just to do it much worse for people. To do worst life for people who still feel Ukrainian in their heart and feels in Ukrainian soul, because you must understand that still a lot of people who stay in occupied territories of Ukraine, they can't use Ukrainian symbolic, but they are Ukrainians and they feel this connection with Ukraine. So for us important here in Kyiv or other Ukrainian cities to talk about people in occupation, under occupation, and call to them that we still remember about them, we work for them, and all what we do here, it's about the occupation of Ukrainian territory, because Russia can do a lot bad things in occupied territories, but we are here to change it and to to show that the life will better and they occupied these territories, I guess so.
But is there a way to tell how many pro-Ukrainian people are living in those occupied territories and how many of the people are just hardcore pro-Russian or maybe don't care at all?
We don't have such statistic, but I guess we can use the traditional way for talk about it, because we have some pro-Russian people. It's normal, and also we must understand that in temporary occupied territories, a lot of people who was moved from Russia, from Tver, Sibir, or so on, they moved to Crimea because it's nice to live in Crimea. So a lot of people in occupied territory is not Ukrainian, not by nationality, it's right Russian by ideologically and by nationality. So it's a lot of Russian people in occupied territories of Ukraine. But as you said, we have some pro-Ukrainian people, and we have some movement in occupied territories like Mavka, which talk about Ukraine. It's like partisan movement in temporary occupied territories. It's still pro-Ukrainian people. And also we have people which under pro-Ukrainian, pro-Russians, and they don't know, they want to live somewhere. It's normal situation, but the goal for Ukraine right now to understand that we fight for Ukrainian people, pro-Ukrainian people, and other people who want to see Ukraine, because it's about democracy, it's about open world, it's about possibilities to build something more than destroying, which Russia do. Because for a lot of people, as I know, and again statistics show it, the people who thought that they are pro-Russian see the results of Russian, totally destroyed Ukrainian people, cities such Pokrovsk or Avdiivka. They understand that Russia have just, they don't have nothing, they just for destroying what people built.
But every year of occupation prolongs the problem, makes the problem harder. As you said, that if you talk about the psychological progression of, let's say, children, first they hide their identity, then they can become ashamed of it, and then finally they break and they start to identify themselves as Russians. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's true, and we must understand this and just include it in our program, including our strategy, political strategy of work after the occupation, or work with during the reintegration program. So yes, we don't know how long occupation will go. Because now it's more than 11 years for Crimea and some part of Donetsk and Lugansk region. It's more than 3 years. It's almost 4 years. In the next month it will be for some territories 4 years under occupation. So we don't know how it will long, but we still, as Ukrainian government, we must work for reintegration program for people who decide to move from temporary occupied territory and live in controlled territory of Ukraine, and we need to have the instrument and clear instruments for the period after the occupation. I guess it's the main what we can do.
That was my last question. Looking forward to the future of free Ukraine, how do you prepare a Ukrainian society, including teachers, to receive these people, these children? How do you ensure that they are welcomed as victims of aggression rather than being judged for their dual identity, maybe at that time, or pro-Russian narratives that they were forced to adopt just to survive?
Now we try to work here in controlled territory of Ukraine with public opinion, and also to spread our attention to reintegration program for people who, as I said, decide to move from temporary occupied territories and live here in Kiev, Lviv, or other cities. It's reintegration program. It's support, financial support, psychological, and so on, in housing support and others. But also Ukrainian government have a plan after the occupation. We have some test regime, I use this word, after the occupation of Kherson region, some part of Kherson region and Kharkiv region. It was first result of the occupation action of Ukrainian army, and then the occupation action in different sphere, in social sphere, and education sphere. And so we already have experience of how to do things after the occupation. But again, it's a big difference between the period of occupation of Kherson-Kharkiv region and occupation of Zaporizhzhia region right now, for example. But still, we have such plan. We, as a country, understand that we need to work with Ukrainian teachers. So we have the program of, I forgot having names even in Ukraine. We have some clusters of Ukrainian teachers who decide to work in the occupied territories, and they teach skills to provide how to work after the occupation. So we have some count of teachers which decide to work in the occupied territories, and we work under it. So it's a huge package of action which we have on paper, and for me it's important that we have understanding what we will do after the occupation of some territories or even all part of Ukraine which are under occupation. So we see it, and maybe next time we will share about how we use all these tools and instruments just after the occupation. But it's just to be clear, it'd be a lot of problem of provided under the action. So it'd be a lot of challenge how to do it.
All right. So at the conclusion, I will just freely say something that would get me in big trouble in occupied territories. Slava Ukraine.
Herojam slava. Thank you so much.
Raidieraksts Drošinātājs.